Welcome to Behind the Trigger. And yes, this is the Bergara BMR. And no, we are not going to be talking a whole lot about this rifle today. I just got it. Today we're going to be talking about setting up the scope on this. So the very first thing you're going to want to do before you even attempt to take your rings out of the box or your scope is you're going to take this rail right off the rifle. Why would you do that? Basically, there could be machine oil down in there and you don't know if the manufacturer put thread lock on these screws or not. So you're going to go ahead, take this rail off, take the screws out, clean out those holes really good, put a little bit of thread lock on those screws and torque it back down. Now I already did that on that rifle, so we're going to get right into mounting the rings. Now this Vortex Diamondback has a 50 millimeter bell, and with the tapered barrel in this 30 MOA rail pre-installed from Bergara, we are going to go with the Vortex medium, tactical medium rings, which are 0.97 as far as the height. Now these are medium. Some companies, the 0.97 or right around that size, are actually lows. So you got to watch that decimal point. Now when you get ready to mount this, what you're going to do is, what I like about this BMR already, I just noticed this when I got set up for this video, is the bolt handle is actually behind the rail, which is good because you don't have to worry about your mount hitting the bolt handle or your bolt handle hitting the mount. That's definitely a plus. So these are, I guess, what you call quick disconnects. It just got a big nut on it, which obviously some rifles like the 457, your bolt handle is going to hit that. So simple way to fix that, you just take it off, put the clamp on the other side. Me personally, I like the clamp on the other side anyways. As you can see, we got plenty of clearance with the bolt handle, which is actually really nice the way how this is set up behind the rail system. So basically you take your front one, and you can do this front, back, it don't matter at this point. You're just going to set it on, make sure you got it lined up with the pick rail and the groove, and you're just going to hand tighten it. The reason we only hand tighten it is because we may have to make adjustments for eye relief. So once you get all your screws loose, what you're going to do is you're going to take your caps, you're going to set them aside. You're going to keep the caps with the corresponding bases in the same direction that you took them off, okay? Let's get that off there because we're going to need that. Very carefully, like what I like to do once I get it set on the mount, is kind of do a preliminary eye relief, and there's nothing to hold this in. And the other thing you're going to want to do after you kind of get an idea of where you want to set for your eye relief is check this little gap right here. Got nice, almost a perfect clearance. Scope could go down a little bit lower, but we're gonna deal with it for now. We can solve that later when we get into the fine tuning the rifle itself. But you want a little space right there, and just enough for the caps to clear. So that's perfect. So then the medium Vortex rings, as I suspected, worked out perfectly. So then you take your corresponding cap, just drop it on, kind of quickly line up the screws, and then we're just gonna run them in. Running these in, I'm just using a bit right now just because it's easier. You just want to run them in just to take up most of the play. You don't want to put any pressure on the caps quite yet. And you're gonna tighten down all 12 screws. Now once you get about your gap set and about equal on each side, what you're gonna do, you're just gonna, no pressure, you're just gonna run those screws till you touch in this case, all 6 screws on one mount. You just run them until it touches, because you do need to still make a couple adjustments, and you don't want to keep on going back and forth once you do get your gap about right. Now you can do this in several different ways to level your crosshairs. You can either, I actually do have a Wheeler level kit for mounting scopes. I've never really done it that way. I've always done it by eye. So what I do is I just take the crosshair, I adjust my parallax to my given distance, and I take the crosshair and I visual align from my vertical crosshair going straight down to the stock. And that's kind of how I do it. Right about there actually looks perfect. So you're just going to visualize a straight line off that vertical crosshair straight down. I would sometimes use the bolt, sometimes I use a stock. It's whatever straight edge I got. Once you do that, you just take, these things are really nice, the Wheeler torque wrenches, or any wrench for that matter of fact. And you're going to follow your rings manufacturer's recommendation for torque, simply. And we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to run these in a little bit, and we're going to go back and forth, cross pattern, just like tighten lug nuts on a car. And we're going to constantly check our gap. And we're going to do that both front and back, because rings do have flex to it. Gap looks really good. I always start in the middle. If I got 3 screws, and you don't want to torque the front ones down without torquing the back. You want to do it equal as possible. And like I said, you're just constantly checking that gap. That one's good. We're just going to go through and we're going to do them all now. And we're going to go across all of them twice, just to make sure. Now onto the front. And I do start in the center, like I said, just because that'll help keep your gap. Then I just start crossing them, and that's before I get it to the torque that's needed. And that should do her. And we're going to check it one more time. Check our gap. Looks pretty good. Gap looks pretty good. It's close enough. Close enough. Not bad. Then we're going to check our crosshair to make sure it's even. Looks pretty good. Eye relief looks really good. Now we can bore sight it. Now that we have the scope mounted in position the way we want it on the rifle, what you're going to do is you're going to make sure that your Mounting screws to the base is tight. These Vortex, like I said, they have a nut, and this nut, instead of using a wrench, it actually has a hole in it, so all you have to do is stick the Allen wrench that's provided with the rings in and tighten those down. And I use a German torque wrench on this. Yeah, right about there is good. Alright, now that everything's locked down nice and snug, we can boresight this thing. And these things are a handy little tool. And all you gotta do is they come with a bunch of little inserts. I got the one for a 30 cal in there right now. So you got the little one for the 30 cal in there right now. We're just gonna unscrew that. And these come with a bunch of little adapters, and we're gonna grab the one for the 22 and we're gonna slip it in. So all this thing is just a piece of plastic to protect the rifling. You screw it in, you get it to where about you think it's gonna be. Oh, too much. Back it off a little bit. Slip it in the barrel. And you turn it until it's nice and snug. Now this is tapered, so all you gotta do is slip it in until you touch the crown. And you tighten it up, and she ain't coming out. Flip the switch. Gives you a nice little dot. Gives you a nice little dot. As you can see. Gives you a nice little dot. And you just find an object. Point it down range. And you crank her up. And you just make the dot to your crosshairs. And once you do that, you are ready to go. Ready to take it to the range, and you should be on paper. Should be on paper 50 yards, and you're about 2 or 3 shots away from getting her zeroed in. If you like what you see, hit that subscribe button.